up this morning, it was 50 degrees outside. So I decided today would be a good day to make a loaf of bread and heat up this kitchen. Now I've been using this recipe for quite some time. Everybody seems to like it. So it's a recipe I have been sticking with. And I will put the recipe down in the description. But let's go ahead and make some bread. So in my mixer, I have 3 cups of flour. We have 3/4 of a cup of warm to hot water because I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of milk to it, and the milk will cool down the water. So I start with kind of hot water, not too hot. We're going to use some yeast, some salt, sugar, and some unsalted butter. Now if you don't have unsalted butter, that's fine. Just don't add salt to the recipe. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is proof our yeast. We're going to do that by adding 3/4 of a cup of warm to hot water to a 1/2 cup of milk. And to this, we are going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. And this will feed the yeast. Okay, and we'll give that a stir. And now we're going to add 1 tablespoon of yeast. And we'll mix that up. Okay, we're just going to let that sit for a few minutes. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 3 cups of flour. Now you can use bread flour or all-purpose flour. I've used both. They both work out the same way. And to that we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now remember, if you're using salted butter, do not put the salt in. Okay, we're just going to give that a quick mix. Okay, our yeast has been proofing for a minute or two. I know the yeast is good because I make bread constantly around here. The only bad thing about homemade bread is that it is not shelf stable like store-bought bread. Around here, our bread will go moldy within 3 days if it's not eaten up. So I make a lot of bread. Okay, so we're going to add our wet ingredients to the flour. So we're going to let this mix until the dough becomes smooth. If you need to, you can add a little bit more flour. Just remember to only add about 1 tablespoon at a time. You don't want to make this dough dry. Okay, our dough is pretty smooth. It's also still sticky, but that's okay. Whoops, wrong button. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use softened butter. Now I put mine in the microwave to soften it and I went a little bit too long, and so now it's partly melted, but it still works just fine. So we're going to use 3 tablespoons of softened butter, and we're going to put in about 1 tablespoon at a time until it is incorporated in, and then we will add the next tablespoon. The first time I made this bread, I put 1 tablespoon of butter in there and my dough all started falling apart, and I was worried that it wasn't going to come out, but I kept with it and everything worked out just fine. So if your dough falls apart after you put the butter in, don't worry. Just put all the butter in and then let it work until it all comes back together. Okay, so it's been a couple of minutes and my dough has come back together and it looks nice and smooth. So all we're going to do now is get it off the bread hook. Alright, just going to try to get it all up into a ball. Alright, now we're just going to cover it and let it rise until double. I got these covers at Walmart, they're pretty neat. Instead of wasting plastic wrap all the time, just stick that on the bowl. You can see down in there, and you don't have to throw it away. You just wash it and reuse it. Alright, so we're going to set this aside and let it rise until it's double in size. Okay, so while the bread is rising, I thought it was a good time to get the Tabasco sauce finished. Eddie just tasted it and he said it's extremely hot, but tastes good. So this has been in the refrigerator since the 13th, so it's been a little over 2 weeks, and it's time to strain it out and put it into some bottles. So I've got this metal colander here. It's really fine. So we're going to pour it through here. Hopefully not get it all over my counter. Okay, I forgot to put on my gloves. So we're going to put these gloves on. It brought tears to Eddie's eyes when he tasted it. So I don't want to take the chance of getting it all over me. Alright, we're going to let this all strain through. My bowl's not very big, so I got to hold my strainer up. And the seeds will clog the colander. Try to move the seeds out of the way so the sauce can go through. Okay, I have got all the juices out of it. As you can see, it's just seeds and pulp now. It's quite thick. It won't go through the strainer anymore. So we're just going to set this in the sink. And we will take care of that later. Okay, so these are the bottles that I bought off of Amazon. I bought 24 bottles. And it comes with the lids and the little plastic tops with the hole in them for Tabasco sauce, or I guess probably any kind of hot sauce. And they also come with wrappers that will go around the cap and the neck of the bottle so that you know that you haven't opened it and used it yet. So I haven't tried this yet, so we'll see how it works out. I have my stainless steel funnel. Let's pour some of this in here. I don't know how much it takes. Okay, so these bottles do not come with instructions, so we're learning this together. I can only go by the reviews that I read when I purchased them. So we're going to take the plastic cover and pop it on there. And it's got the little hole in it. Other caps on it. Good and tight. All right, now I don't know how these work, so it's just a circle. So we're just going to take that and slide it down over the cover and onto the neck. Now we're going to want it up on the lid some so that it holds the lid down. So I'm going to leave it up about 1/8 of an inch, and we'll see how that works out. So now, from what I understand, we just dunk this into hot water and it's supposed to shrink. Okay, I think I need a deeper pan. It did shrink very well. There's some of the plastic around the lid here, but it didn't shrink that good on the neck. So it may just be because I couldn't get the bottle down in there as well as I did the lid, or maybe it doesn't shrink that much. Let's try another one. And this time I'm going to put my hot water into a quart jar or pint jar so I can totally dunk it straight down in there. Alright, let's try this second jar. I've got the plastic on there with about 1/8 of an inch hanging over, and we're going to dip it straight down in. Okay, so again, see if I can show you. It's nice and smooth around the cap. It has a lip on the top, but the neck does not come out smooth. But it's homemade sauce, so I'm not gonna worry too much about it. I mean, I guess if you're a perfectionist, you'll want to maybe try a different type of the plastic sleeves, but I don't mind people knowing it's homemade, because it is homemade. I'm gonna send some to my sons for a Christmas present, and if I was to make a bunch of it, I would probably try to sell some at the flea market where we sell our satsumas. Okay, so back to the bread. Okay, we've cleaned up from the Tabasco sauce and our bread dough has risen and it is ready. So, I have a little bit of flour here in case it gets too sticky. We're just gonna put the dough onto my cutting board. I think we better put some flour down first because this feels a little bit sticky. All right. Okay. Let's put a little bit of flour on the top. We're just gonna work this just a little bit. Now you don't want to get too much flour on it because it needs to stick to itself or you'll have holy bread. Okay. Okay, we're gonna let this relax for just a few minutes and it will roll out a lot better if you let it rest. So we're gonna let this rest for a couple of minutes and then we'll come back and we'll roll it out. Okay, so the dough's been resting about 2 minutes. That's all it takes. Now that'll just make it so that we can roll it out better. And I'm not very good at rolling dough into rectangles. And actually when I'm making a pie and you have to roll your crust into a circle, I can't do that either. So I just sort of get odd shapes. Okay, so get this into a rectangle the best we can, rectangulish. Okay, that's big enough for my pan. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna roll it up. And when you roll, you wanna push down on the dough. That is going to help you get less holes in your bread. You wanna make the dough stick to itself. So I'm just gonna roll that all the way up. Pinch the seam. Okay, and now I'm gonna fold over the ends just a little bit and pinch everything together. Do the same with the other end. We just want all of the dough to be stuck to itself. All right, that looks good. We're gonna set it in our greased pan. Now I did grease the pan. That way the bread doesn't stick when it's all done. We're just gonna put that down in there. Kind of make sure it's centered in there, just like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're gonna cover this up. And this time I'm gonna use my towel, which I put under my cutting board so my cutting board wouldn't slide away. So we're just going to cover this up now and we'll let it rise until it's about 1/2 inch to 1 inch above the top of the pan. If you let it rise too much, your bread could fall, which I have had happen. I thought, hey, I'll make a huge loaf of bread, but as soon as I moved it, it fell, it collapsed, and it was no fun. So about 1/2 inch above the pan and you're good. And then we're going to put it in the oven. So I will be right back as soon as this rises up. And we're back. The bread has risen. We can uncover it here. It's a little small. Normally I would let it get a little bit bigger, but it's kind of getting late in the day and I need to get this bread done. So I have preheated the oven to 350 degrees and we're going to put this in for 30 to 40 minutes. Normally I would say 35 to 40 minutes, but I don't know what's with my stove. If it gets a little hotter, it seems to get done right around 30 minutes. So we're going to put this in the oven and we'll set a timer for 30 minutes. We will check it in 30 minutes and see if it's done. Okay, the timer's going off. So let's see what we've got. Oh, that looks good. So it's nice and golden brown. Sounds done. If you don't know how to tell when your bread is done, one thing you can do is stick a thermometer into it. And it should be about 180 to 190 degrees. 191. Now what we want to do is take it out of the pan without burning ourselves. And it should just fall right out since we did grease the pan. Perfect. Now, just take your butter and rub it along the top and that will soften the crust. I mean, if you like a hard crust, then you can skip this step. But I like my crust to be soft, like the rest of the bread. And it also helps to give it a little bit more of that butter flavor. So just that simple. Just rub some butter over the top of it and now let it cool. You don't want to cut into hot bread. If you do, you'll smash it down. It's much better to wait until it cools and then you can cut it open and enjoy. Alright guys, that's all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. We noticed that 92% of people watching our videos are not subscribed. That's a lot of people that are not subscribed. So if you would, and you haven't already, please go down below and hit the subscribe button. Or over in the corner of the video, I don't know which corner, there's a little tomato. You can also click on that to subscribe. We appreciate you watching and we will see you next time.